Everybody smiles.
And we're live. Welcome, everybody, to the pilot episode of the Man of Options podcast. I am one of your hosts, Rob Kowalski, joined by these three other handsome gentlemen, Jeff Varga, top right, Aubrey Killian, bottom right, and Ryan Ridgely, bottom left. What's up, guys? How's it going?
Well,
Hey,
good evening, gentlemen. Good evening to all our listeners and watchers out wherever they may find themselves on this very interesting globe we live on.
Yes. Well, welcome, everybody. And look, if you're just tuning in, if you're watching this for the first time, which all of you are watching for the first time, actually, because it's our first episode, drop a comment. Let us know where you're watching from. We'd like to kind of have an idea of where we're drawing people in. And feel free to drop your questions and comments. We're going to try to go through them all. Have a little section at the end, but this is a podcast that we've been thinking about doing for a while, and it's we're calling it the Man of Options. It's basically just going to be an open discussion where Christians will challenge false church doctrines, specifically on monogamy-only marriage, but other things too. But we'll be talking about reclaiming masculine roles, countering feminist brainwashing, and restoring godly families. So I think we're going to have some really interesting discussions, and I think you're going to learn a lot if you stick around. So do me a favor, drop a comment, even if you just say hello, just to trip the algorithm so we get more viewers on this first one, and hopefully there'll be many more like this. So before we get started, I want to play this slick intro that Jeff put together for us. Here we go. Boom. All right, guys. So just
it all starts somewhere, doesn't it?
Yeah, we got to start somewhere. This is our pilot, right? So we're just kind of testing the waters and seeing how this thing goes, and really honestly just seeing if God is in it. Walking by the Spirit, sometimes you're not sure if it's God idea or if it's one of your crazy ideas. I mean, I liken walking by the Spirit to jiggling doorknobs. That's what I call it, because some people just wait for God to do it. They don't jiggle. I'm always jiggling the doorknob to see if it's unlocked. Is this God? Take a step, see if he meets me. If he does, maybe I'll take another step. So that's the way I look at this. We're jiggling a doorknob right now.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, some believers would just stand and watch and see if a door opens, but our Heavenly Father is not a puppet master. Exactly. You need to take those first steps, definitely.
Heard TD Jakes say the problem with Christians is they pray for tables and chairs, but God doesn't make tables and chairs. God makes trees.
There we go. Well said. Jeff, you wanted to say something?
What's that?
No, I was just going to make a comment to jiggling, but let's move on. It's probably better.
All right. Well, we're going to be talking about a really cool tool that our colleague, Ryan's and my colleague, Aubrey, put together called the marriageability calculator. Is that's what you're calling it? Aubrey?
Yeah, I think that's a fair.
Okay. So for those of you who don't know, Aubrey is one of the coaches in the men's coaching program. He actually leads all the Thursday calls for the men. He's a stud. He's got his master's degree. He's an international lawyer, brown belt in jiu-jitsu, two beautiful ladies at home, lots of kids, loves the Lord. Guy we should all aspire to be more like. And he came up with this interesting idea of feeding all the relative. I don't know, you probably described better than me, but basically he had created a formula to show the marriageability. Like, what are the chances a woman will be able to get married, judging by all kinds of factors, age, weight, children, many others. And basically, with all the data, he's able to kind of tell you what percentage it is that you will likely find a man, the man that you're looking for. Because correct me if I'm wrong, Aubrey, but it's also it's not just the woman finding a man. It's also her preference, right? So she says, well, I'm a Christian. I got one child. I'm 35 years old, but I want to marry another Christian. That you take all that into consideration too. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yes. So are we jumping right into this calculator? Or are we going to do that?
Let's take a look at a clip from the holiday first, and just kind of set this up, and then we'll have some a little bit of banter, and then go right into your calculator.
Yeah, this is going to tee this up nicely. So here we go.
And remember when they used to say that single women over the age of 35 were more likely to be killed by a terrorist than to get married? Okay, that was horrible. But now our generation is also not getting married. And bonus, real terrorists actually became part of our lives. So the stress of it all shows up on our faces, making us look haggard. While Ethan goes on looking cute forever and stripping his 24-year-old receptionist. Oh my God.
Yeah, good clip, man. A lot of truth in that.
Well, I wonder how many women today are even thinking about marriage.
Right. And their 20s are not. I was talking to Sana about this the other day, my wife, and she's like, it's so easy to fall into that. We saw this good-looking girl at the gym, and she was working out with this other good-looking young guy. And he looked like he was a trainer, and she looked like she probably liked him because she was really dressed, like really made up for the gym. And I'm thinking, and Sana's like, he's probably sleeping with her. And he's like, and this is why polygyny makes so much sense, because she's never going to get the commitment from him. He's just going to sleep with her. And he says, and this is how it sneaks up on girls, because you think in your 20s, you got all this time, right? You're like, oh, you don't even think about like your biological clock really. And maybe your late 20s. But then all of a sudden, next thing you know, you're 28, you're 29. And then you're like, and you look around and you're like, you see how slim the pickings are out there, because all the men that value marriage have already got married. And then next thing you know, now you're making decisions from a place of desperation because you're scared. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I tend to be a passport bro in that I've dated, given up on American women and I've dated outside the country. I remember 20 years ago, I was going out with a girl from Indonesia, and she just kind of abruptly, real super nice girl, but she just kind of abruptly went off the radar. And I asked her sometime afterward, I said, what was the deal? And at this time I was super involved, just working in films and movies, and just a chaotic life. And I had no time for family or anything. But she said, it's like, well, you told me that you weren't interested in kids at this point. And so she moved on.
Yeah, no, we see what you see. If you look at the lady, when she engages, when she's 18 and she really starts working in the public marketplace. Now, I say this with a lot of care. I'm not saying that you were there to be bought. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying you're engaging life as an adult. Your first 10 to up until the age about 30, you're really those are your young years where you're actually use what you have to engage a man that may be interested in you, and he's taking a chance on you, because remember, you have, in as much as you may have value yourself, and we want people to value themselves, but you really don't know what your potential is. And if women put more effort in to determine that, or to look at a man that can see a woman's potential, then and evaluate that man to be able to see your potential, then we'll have women that will see men for what they are, the bad ones and the good ones. And then by the time they reach 30, they've invested in a man to enjoy life with a family. And what a man does is he invests in a woman so that he has the opportunity to unlock her potential. And at the end of the day, what you have is this symbiotic relationship, this synergy that starts developing between men and women, that is needed for society to continue. Because once again, I used to be a criminal defense lawyer. I've got 289 criminal defense cases behind me. And I can tell you one thing about this is that a lot of young men started from fractured families, either alone or whatever they have, the situation is. When if we do not take the effort to protect families for what they are, we're going to sit with a lot of jails than malls in the future.
Amen.
And it seems like when once the girl eclipses the age of 30, that's when we find them asking that notorious question: where are all the good men at? And I'm assuming that we're going to talk a little bit about that tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, where are the good men, or where are they? And definitely when we get into this partner likelihood estimator, we're going to see that it diminishes over time.
Yeah.
And that is a bit of a issue for a lot of these women, that the time is running out, and we don't want to see that. We don't want to see women suffer through that.
Age out, yeah. So look, if you're out there and you're watching, and maybe you want to call in, maybe you want us to run your number. You can tell us how old you are, what your situation is, what kind of man you're looking for, or you just want to call in and maybe you have a sister or someone else that's looking and you want to have us run that. I'll go ahead and provide the email address here in just a moment where you can email, and then we'll let you join us on the call. But just to throw out like a hypothetical number, let's start with just what's an average age? I'd say let's say 30 years old. Let's start at 30. 30 years old woman. Does she have any kids or no kids?
Well, let me tell you this. Let's start with the hypothetical,
Sure.
and then what we can do is we can go from there, and then you can start all about the interesting questions, and we can work maybe this hypothetical into this conversation during as we continue. But yes, let's start with a lady of the age of, let's say, 30. Now, what we need to understand is, before, as I said, for the listeners out there, we'll get into a little bit more of the nuts and bolts of what this estimator does and how it's calculated, and some of the weights that we used in development. But let's say, for instance, we need to work on preferences. So first of all, 18, does she want a religious match? You need to answer.
You're saying she's 18. Yeah, that actually, this would be a great place to start. Let's start with an 18-year-old. Okay. Versus a 35-year-old. I want to see the difference, because this is going to tell us a lot. Because when Aubrey shared some of these numbers with me, I was like, damn, we're screwed. Like, this is why the marriage rate's so low, because it's almost like you got, and maybe this sounds bad, but it's like you got these women they're like this house that's been on the market forever. And they're like, no, it's worth $650,000 because the guy, down the block sold his 2 years ago for $650,000. So, and it's been on the market and there ain't no buyers. They're not getting any offers, but they won't budge off that $650,000. Well, you're going to have to drop it, honey. You have to. And so this is where we're at. It's like these people have been sold this bill of goods, and they don't have the value that they think they have, or at least according to this, according to the market, which is actually never wrong. If the market's not dictating, if you're not getting proposals, that means you need to change something. Either your standards need to come down, or you got to raise your value in some way. But yeah, what are you going to say, Jeff? You had something?
Well, I was going to say, 18 is a good place to start. And I think we're probably going to end up doing a show specifically about this subject matter, which is, we've got an entire culture that are no longer gearing girls to become wives.
Yes.
They're gearing them to go off and get a career, and the trajectory is straight into college for 4 years, and according to collegestatistics.com, that girl is going to have had 5 sexual partners by the time she exits at university. So, and this is a problem in the church. The church is supporting nothing about gearing a girl to be a wife.
Yes.
No, she's going to have a career. That's it.
Only Absolutely. 5, Jeff? Only 5?
They're lying.
Well, that's average.
That's the magic number.
Yeah, I agree with you.
That might be the first year.
They want to say one hand, so they say 5. It's always the number I found.
Well, let's start with the 18-year-old. Will she have a religious match? Remember, if you have a religion match, your options do diminish. So
yes, let's say we got an 18-year-old girl. She's looking for a Christian husband.
Okay.
She's got no kids, obviously. What other factors do you put into that?
Okay, so let's say high school education.
Yeah, she's got some college, or she's just starting college. Let's say.
Well, let's say just got high school. Just high school. Okay.
Yeah.
What is her career income bracket? I'm talking about here. What is she? Not hers, but her perspective. Shall we say
perspective?
Medium, low, medium?
I'd say medium.
Medium. Let's go medium. Racial preference. Now, is she strict racial preference? Would she like to stay with her racial group?
I think the younger generation are more flexible on that end. So let's say no.
No racial preference. Okay. Community. Is she rural or urban?
I was going to say rural. What do you guys think?
We'll get a more interesting answer if we put in she's a city girl.
Okay. She's a city girl. It just makes more options, because more the availability of single men it's just more available. Is she willing to relocate? This really comes in when it's a bit of when it's rural. But I mean, let's say she's willing to. I mean, a lot of dating happens online these days. She's willing
Yes.
to relocate. So let's
Yeah.
say yes. And she's never been married before.
Never been married.
She has no children.
No.
She wants children.
Are sexual partners something that you've used
No.
to calculate this? No. Okay.
No, that's no. We didn't use that variable. So she has no children. She wants children, and she has no children of her own. Okay.
Yes.
So let's just get this all going. So this lady is, as I said, she's 18-year-old. We don't take in personal preferences. We do not take in how she looks, how she presents, how well she's groomed. We just take she is religious, Matt, yes, and specifically Christian. Education level is high school. Career income bracket that she wants from the guy is medium. Racial preference is strict is no. She has no racial preference. Community size is urban. Willing to relocate, yes. Marital history, never. She does not have children, but she wants children. So based on my calculator, and we've been very, very gracious, she has a maritable percentage of 18%.
18.
Wow.
Hold on. How I'm surprised that that's so low. Why only 18% at 18 years old? You would think it would be much higher than that.
Because of her I apologize. Hold on.
Is this?
Hold on. Yep, 18%. So because we started off, so because of her religious requirement.
Okay.
Now, I think this is a great way for us just to get into the calculator and how it's put together, because and let me just want to see here. So on conclusion, it says an 18-year-old woman with a given criteria has an estimate of 17.96% marriageability percentage in her urban dating pool. The higher percentage reflects broader preferences, a larger base pool, a favorable demographic factor is associated with her age, further adjusting preferences like income, religious flexibility would modestly improve her chances. So
basically, she's willing to date a non-believer and maybe not have a guy that's making $75,000 a year, then her chances will probably go up exponentially.
Well, let's do that. Let's say she does not consider a religious match. Career aim, let's say career bracket low, medium, or low.
Yeah, just say low, medium.
Yeah, I mean today, all these interviews we watch of these girls online on the street interviews, 75,000, that's low income in their eyes.
Yes, it is. When I said medium, I wasn't sure what the number that Aubrey was thinking, but I do see now, and you see it happen all the time in church where, women marry an unbeliever, and then the church I can't believe she dated a guy that's married a guy that's not a Christian. Well, there's 2 women to every man in the church right now, so you're kind of forcing them to do this. So yeah, I could see. Okay. Religious preference, change that, and let's change the income and see where she comes in.
Let's go with I know the average income in the States is what, 38,000 at the moment. That's the average income.
I think it used to be. I think that's a very low number now.
That is 2024. I just looked it up. Statistics.
No kidding.
Yep.
That's surprising because I'm seeing the new low income pretty much all around is around 70, but
give us that tally, Aubrey. What does she come in at now?
Okay, well, so her dating pool is significantly larger. So additional factors, marital history. Remember, we don't even calculate previous relationships. But her marriageability goes up to 32.32%.
What I feel like this needs is I think you need something for attractiveness, right? Because that's going to determine. And then, sexual partners I think is important. But, does she cook? Does she clean? Does she give oral sex in marriage? I mean, those are things that a man needs to know because I believe that would raise the number.
Yeah, well, and you see those variables aren't part of the variable of calculations just because they're so vast and they're so abstract. Um, uh, these statistical calculators don't like abstract aspects to them. But what I can
Yeah.
tell you now is that just by changing her religious requirement from yes to no, almost doubled her tally there.
I wonder if she was like a virgin. If we could somehow factor that in. So everything you just said, but she's a virgin.
Yeah.
And if that would change, take her from a 32 to like double it, 64%, or I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if it did do something crazy like that.
You know what? And that's the show that I want to do. Actually, is attention to virginity that's been kind of replaced by premarital sex. That's not discussed in anything anymore. And honestly, I can't imagine guys out there dating today even expect it anymore.
Yeah.
No, and a lot of men don't have that requirement. What we do see is in this calculator is a significant diminishment in percentage as soon as a woman has children. That has a major influence on it. But let's go with and let me just look at these and they say, as I said, the calculator really addresses how individual preferences and societal trends impact the likelihood of finding a partner. So let me rephrase. It does not address the individual preferences, but it's the societal trends in the likelihood of finding a partner. For example, when we look at government statistics, that it shows that urban areas, there are often more single women than men in the same age group. And then the tool uses the data to highlight the challenges and the realities that women face in the dating market. Now we do see, if you look at Stats USA, we see that women under the age of 30, that there is about a 40 to 45% registration of marriages. Now this does not include second or third time. It just says it's marriages. So a woman by the age of 30 could have already married twice, and that could raise that a percentage. This does not show women in civil unions or staying together. And this is purely just looking at marriages. So at this moment, that lady, 32.32%, she falls close to that 40%. So
Let's just change one thing now. Let's make her now 34 with one kid. Everything else the same.
Okay.
34.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a 34, and she has one child. Okay.
Everything else the same.
Everything else the same.
And Aubrey, you don't have race as part of your equation.
So race, she does not have a race preference. She is. We've seen that significant in some communities. That race preference does play a role on occasion. That does play a role. Some are a little more relaxed, but we did take that in on a 10% calculation out of 100 to determine the significance thereof. So at 34, she is at 5.68% marriageable percentage. That's 5.68%.
So just changing those two things. One child, 34 years old, she drops from 32 to 5%.
That's correct. Yeah.
Wow.
So if you choose to remove the child, if you remove it, now we'll get a bit. As I said, we'll get a little bit more in depth to how it was put together, but she goes up to almost 10%.
Yeah.
Doubles.
Yep.
If what?
If she has no children.
Yeah. I mean, I could speak to that. I mean, you guys are probably I don't know what you think, but I'm like, God would have to be very clear with me to do that, to marry a single mom, because it is a whole nother set of responsibility, right? It's another human being. It's the kid's father being in the picture. There's a lot of things to consider. So I would marry a single mom, but God would have to tell me. I'm not looking for one necessarily. So I get it.
I think this is
Yeah,
where when 1 Timothy 5 talks about widows. I think we see with amongst widows that where there is no father or when the woman's not divorced, it just makes the transition and a little bit more just way better. But you do see that that the new relationship or the new marriage can become the proverbial ball in the court within the legal system, where you can see that happening. We see this with plural marriages, especially where a man marries a woman that's already been divorced, or she has a child with another man, and then he uses this opportunity. And some of the women do this. Actually, women, it's about 50-50, but what they do is the spouse uses that to show that the environment that this child is currently in is not the most it's not the best for the child, and so then it becomes a battle. And unfortunately, in most cases, it is the plural marriages, because it's so frowned upon by the court system, that these parents that are involved in these relationships do lose access, or in some cases, even custody of children.
Yeah, I mean, you're if you've got a father in the picture from kids that aren't yours, you're anchored to whatever that geographic area you're living in. That job market is the only thing you're going to be able to make an earning at, unless you're away from home all the time at that point.
Yep, exactly.
Somebody posted, let's do 2 kids, single mother, 30.
Okay.
While you're doing that, Aubrey, I just want to address one quick thing. This guy posted a comment, and I know we'll probably should I wait, Jeff, to do the comments later?
Well, anytime Aubrey's going through his calculations, maybe we can take a minute. And
this guy says, "Go win souls for Christ," and then he says, "When we have our white throne judgment, Jesus is not going to ask how many brides," I think he meant to say not birds, "did you mate with? Oh no, how many birds did you mate with? He'll ask you, how many souls did you win for me? How holy did you walk? Did you feed the hungry?" I don't disagree with those things, but I get quite a bit people push back on the content I put out, and like, preach the gospel. I'm like, look, no offense, but I probably led a lot more people to Jesus than you. This is how I spent the majority of my life up until God dropped this polygyny, the false doctrine of monogamy only on me. And you want to go out and me to go get a bunch of people to play this game, Follow Jesus, called Follow Jesus. And the rules have been changed to set them up for failure. Do you understand that? So first, let's get the rules of the game fixed, okay? Because they're broken right now. They've been changed. And then we can welcome men into playing the game successfully. But you just want them to come in and play. This is why when you see all these pastors falling into sexual sin, failing, like 8, I think in Texas last year, pastors got caught in sexual sin. It's because the rules of the game have been changed. Okay. And men are struggling with this prescription lifelong monogamy when the Bible never says that, ever. So we have to fix that first. And then we can get a bunch of men to come in, and hopefully, they'll lead all the women and the children, and we can change the world. But first, we got to get the rules straight. Does anybody else agree with me on that?
Well,
Jeff,
go ahead, Aubrey. Go ahead.
I'll go after you because I've got something to mention in response to the gentleman's comment.
Well, I was going to say, when people say go out and preach the gospel, they forget that Jesus was wrestling against the religious, just as we are today. We are fighting back against the religious that have come up with they've gone way beyond the Mosaic laws of 613 laws given by God. Now we're up into the thousands, maybe tens of thousands, now that we're 2,000 years past Christ. And I think actually that man was talking about birds. Maybe he was from England.
well, you will let me say this. What Jeff just mentioned was, this is what we call in theology legalism. It's people in the people that don't study or study the Bible enough, or even just to go to a seminary school. What they normally do is they attribute legalism or define legalism as when somebody stands on the law. That's actually not what legalism is. Legalism is what the Pharisees did when they went from the law, from Torah, and they expanded it into the Talmud and increased from 613 all the way to about 2,000 laws. And that's what actually the true meaning is from legalism. But coming back to the gentleman's comment, we are called to to evangelize. But what we sometimes forget is that the Great Commission is to actually be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. And what we need to do is, remember, I'm an African. I come from probably one of the most evangelized continents on this world, on this globe. I've evangelized as well when I was about 25 years ago, during my time in seminary school. But what I can tell you, one thing is there's a big difference in going evangelizing out somewhere on a different continent. But it's quite another to evangelize to your own wife and evangelize to your own children. That's your primary field of evangelism. You cannot just expect going out and evangelize and you neglecting your responsibilities at home.
Yeah.
That is counter to what our Heavenly Father expects us to go, be fruitful, have children, and fill the earth.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah, not to mention the inverted authority structure we find in the churches today, where the pastor is led by his wife, and basically we have woman worship, right? Ashtaroth worship, where it's completely inverted, where the structure from the Father is God, Messiah, man, woman. Yes. And this is what these folks don't understand, and they just keep parroting the same thing over and over. It's just cyclical.
So coming back to the calculator, so our avatar is age 30. She has a religious match, Christian. She has an education, high school. Career income is medium. Racial preference, no. Community size, urban. Willing to relocate, yes. Marital history, never. Have children, yes. And she has 2. That brings her into 4.92% marriageability.
Man, this is depressing for women if they're watching this.
Yeah, but that's a diminishment of about 1% from 1 to 2 children. It's not significant.
I mean, I was going to say, wow, this sounds like a woman I would marry up until you get up to the point of the 2-point children.
Yeah, exactly. Unfortunate. I think just in general, men want to make sure that when they build their own house, they want to build it with their own legacy, their own children, their own blood. My concern always, this is one thing that I always speak about when I speak to men about letting in a woman into your house that already has children. Let's say I have 2 daughters, hypothetically, and I want to marry a woman that maybe has a son, maybe a teenage son. I will be very reluctant to even marry her, to bring her in, even if the boy is about a few years older than my daughters, because they're not from the same blood, they're not from the same genetics, and so what I have is I'm concerned for the safety of my daughters when they hit puberty.
One thing I thought. Go ahead, Jeff.
I was going to say, here we are in the Brady Bunch format with the boxes.
Right.
I mean, did you have the Brady Bunch growing up?
We caught it way later. We watched some of it in the 90s. Yeah.
3 boys, 3 girls. Okay.
Yep.
Back to that guy's comment with evangelizing. I look at it this way: if we can get this straight, if we can get the word out about this false doctrine, I know there's a lot of guys like studs, chads, alphas, whatever you want to call them, and they are not even considering coming to Jesus because they're having too much fun, right? They're like, they would never give all that up to get into this little cage called monogamy only. Let me squeeze in there. Like, they're not going to do it. But if we get this straight, doesn't that open up to the men that could actually pull this off? They would be like, hold on, what? I can have 4 wives and God's cool with that? It doesn't mean I'm a piece of shit. No, God's cool with it, actually. And now they might come to Jesus, and they might stop polluting the dating pool with all these women and just commit to a few of them, and then raise some godly children and set an example. Instead of Ned Flanders being the most associated, character with Christianity, maybe it'll be this stud, and that's how we change the world. That's how you evangelize the world. So you're looking at like one little frame. You're not seeing the big picture, Prometheus.
So what I did is prior to this to this meeting, what I did is I put a few examples together, just to randomize. I went through a bunch of randomized examples, and just to give us an extra bit of perspective. For instance, I had the educated. I called her the educated 30-year-old. She is age 30. She has a master's degree. Now, that should already be a red flag to you. Not in the sense that her value or her education, but because of women's hypergamy, where they want to find a man that's more educated or have a higher status than them. Most of these women with master's degree want men with master's degrees or doctorates. So they have that issue when it comes to the matching them intellectually. So her income bracket is middle income, so at about 60, 75. She's a devout Christian. Her racial preference is strict. She's and this is the other one. I started dabbling with unvaccinated and vaccinated as well post COVID, and because somebody asked me about that question about about an unvaccinated man's semen, is that the next Bitcoin? So I had to add that variable in it, because it's true. We've seen a lot of resistance during the COVID pandemic, that there were a lot of religious people. So it is a variable to keep to consider. She is urban, open to relocation. Her marital status is she's single, and she has no children. Her likelihood is 3.45%. Despite being well educated and childless, her strict racial and vaccine preferences dramatically shrinks the available pool of eligible single men who meet her expectation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I will drop one. There's the small town religious 35-year-old, the 28-year-old career orientated urbanite. Maybe some of our listeners can listen to some of the names and maybe shoot us a one that they want to hear. The 32-year-old traditionalist with strict criteria. She came in at 1.85%, obviously. Then the 40-year-old divorced woman seeking compatibility. Very open-minded. She's at 5.6%.
That's with children or no?
She has 2 children. We can run that one. Let's run that one.
You know what?
Without
Aubrey, I
children.
was thinking about something that Pearl said, and
Yep.
she was like, when she was kind of doing a response video to our debate with Andrew Wilson, and she was talking about the girl, and she's like, she's 40 years old, and she's like, it's kind of really more for her, isn't it? Like, yeah, hello. When you hear these percentages, you start to understand why we're so passionate about letting the godly men marry more than one woman, because the chances of them finding a husband under monogamy only, at least they got a chance under polygyny. They have almost no chance under monogamy only, and the church just stands there, co-signing this bullshit.
Yeah,
Go ahead. And I mean, a 40-year-old woman with a couple of children, is she really thinking about wanting to get married at that point? Because she's got alimony coming in and she's taken care of, she's walked, if she's divorced, she's walked away from a husband that's providing 50% or more of her life. I don't think she's really looking for that, is she?
Yeah.
Yeah. And speaking of that debate with Andrew, we're talking here about these statistics, and what does that say about saving marriage in the West? I mean, how bleak is it? I'm hoping that by the end we can provide a little hope.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, true. So that 40-year-old bachelor's degree, middle income preference, Christian flexible, racial open, vaccinated. So she just doesn't care if it's vaccinated or unvaccinated. She's urban, open to relocation, marital status of a partner. She's divorced or single. She does have 2 children. Her marriageable percentage is 3.84%.
I think that's high.
Well, it's possible. It's possible. I think the things that makes a difference there is her bachelor's degree, her middle income. She's this is the thing. We've seen men that are driven, and I've been reading the statistics, and I've been reading Dr. McCullough's some of his research on this, but we've seen that a lot of men that are put interest in having children are at this moment concerned with the diminishment of fertility and vaccinated women, that vaccination does could play a major role. Probably not at this moment, Jeff, but we can see this possibly increase significantly in the next 5 years, that the status of a woman may have a significant influence, unlike the others, on her marriageability.
I think when the information is no longer censored and withheld about the damage that
Mm.
has caused us,
Mm.
that it's going to be a whole different ballgame then.
Yep.
Like you said, Bitcoin.
Yep, but I don't want to get into that. This is not what our show is about.
Mm.
We're there's maybe different points of view on this. This is really not what we're just looking at. Is we're looking at as at a variable and societal's perceptions. It may be right, it may be wrong. Perceptions do does play a role in a woman's meritability. So for everybody out there, it's not that I'm pushing any other narrative. What I'm just looking at a variable. One of the key interesting variables here that Rob may find interesting is the 50-year-old traditionalist, which we do have a lot of in our society. She's 50 years old. She has a bachelor's degree. She's low to medium income preference. So she's probably already settled. She doesn't care about the income of this man is. She would just be a partner to me. She's strict Christian, so she wants a man that's Christian as well. She's strict with her own race. She's unvaccinated. She's rural, not open to relocation. She's single only, so she was that really pushing the being a woman that will get that was career orientated, no children. She drops down to a 0.9%.
So let me. Okay, some people are going to question. They're going to question the accuracy of this thing, right? They're going to say, right. So they're going to say, well, what determines this number? Where's this coming from?
Okay.
How did you? Yeah.
Well, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
And once again, I want to mention about this is that the calculator's weakness is that it's if you look at the human relationship aspect of it, you'll find more comely women will be way more eligible to marriage, or let me not eligible, but their meritability will come up. Understand, if they look after themselves, present themselves. If you're overweight, obese, your chances does significantly diminish. So we're working here with the averages of everybody on that spectrum. So, but the calculator does not take human relationships, let me say, human relationships are rarely linear. While age and income, all of that matters in the broad terms, individuals don't always conform to these trends. So, for example, a highly compatible couple might overcome factors like age differences, but the calculator can capture those numbers. What we also did is we took the average of the age gap between men and women. So the calculator is set at or primed at 2 to 5 years age difference. So that could also play a role if you consider men that are 10 years older than you. But we went with what anthropologically considers 2 to 5 years in difference. So that may also add maybe a percentage or two. But the compatibility does not hinge on emotional traits like kindness, humor, and shared goals. Those aren't quantified. But we focus solely on the measurable variables, which the calculator can give, and to create a picture. And once again, it's not a tool. It's a very interesting tool, but it's not a tool to. You still need to put in the work if you want to have a relationship. If we speak about you as a 30-year-old bachelor's degree woman with one child, you may be at 3.5%, but that's just a statistic. If you're going to be put up, if you're going to dress up, you're going to go out, meet men, you're gregarious, maybe you're a loving person, chances do significantly increase.
Right.
And we're not taking in like things like ideologies and you mentioned the 50-year-old traditional, but we don't really know what traditional means in that circumstance. It could be egalitarianism, right? We have no way we're only making assumptions and speculation at that point, right?
Well, at that point, what we did is we said we with the 50-year-old traditionalist, religious preference was strict. So with that in mind, how many men would we? So we once again we go by Stats USA to say, but what is the percentage of men within a community that is Christian, for instance? So we don't even look at the different denominations. We don't even look at Catholic and Catholic. We don't even which could be a variable, but we're just looking at Christian.
Let me ask the audience, what do you guys think? Does this ring true with you? Do you agree? Do you think that is really probably pretty close to the numbers that we provided? Drop a 1 if you believe it. If you don't believe it, drop a 2. You're like, just there's no way it's that low.
And particularly women. We'd like to hear from women on this.
Yep,
We would.
because the women are at this moment, when they're in the dating pool and they're trying to navigate this uncertainty, how was their experience? I mean, I'm not talking about you just meeting men. I'm talking about, tell me about, have you heard of women that have started dating that were able to secure, that were able to marry? I mean, those are the things we need to look at.
I had that Waiting Works community. I lived in this world for years. I wrote the book about it, and there was 4,000 members of that group. Most of them were women, 90% of them. And they were just, very rarely would you hear the story about somebody that met a man and got married, like maybe 1 or 2 a year, if that. It was sad, man. And they're sitting there asking, where are all the good men? Where are they?
Yeah. So just looking at the weights and how the algorithm was put together, we put weights based upon the research, I put weights based upon the research I did by visiting the European Union as well as the Stats Canada and Stats USA. For instance, what I did is I said I put age accounts out of 100. I age accounts for about 30%, because this of the calculation, because based upon well-established anthropological research, age makes a massive influence on perceptions of marriageability, as well as just being able to conceive children. So the younger a man, obviously men were more drawn to younger women, and so that percentage will increase for that woman being. So an 18-year-old compared to a 30 or 40-year-old will have a higher percentage with regards to her age.
Yeah.
Factors also like relocation, weight, 10%, because of the dependent on individual circumstances. And so all of that was added based upon what we found anthropologically, what people prefer. And so definitely when we compare this results with say Stats USA, it does reflect this, to some extent it does reflect the statistics. As women age, the pool of eligible desirable single men shrinks, once again mirroring what government says, where we see marriage rates decline significantly after the age of 35. So you have to you have a woman that's 30. Remember, we work with a range between 2 and 5 years older than the woman. So when she is already 35, how many 37 to
42
40 or 42-year-old men are available at that stage for her to even marry? She may be lucky to find a divorced man or a widower. So it really depends on those aspects as well. And your personal circumstances may change or differ, but at the end of the day, we work with those statistics to make the determination.
Aubrey, let me ask a question. So this is obviously just under monogamy, right? You didn't factor in now if she's open to a different relationship structure. Did you factor that into or no?
I did actually. What I did is I ran a separate calculator, not to taint this one, but I ran a second one just to see what the variables of polygyny would make a difference. And it seemed that polygyny will increase, what could increase from the marriageability from anything between 18 to 32%.
Wow, that's a big jump.
So a woman that has a 4%, probably considering, once again, it depends on the variables, race, education, all of those. That's why it's a scale from 18 to 32.
Yeah.
But let's say we work on a modest number of 18. A woman with 4% goes up, her marriageability goes up to 22%.
Wow.
Isn't it interesting that just tying back to the polygyny debate here, isn't it interesting that it's kind of known that if a man is wearing a wedding ring, that he's more attractive? I mean, there's a reason behind that.
Yeah. biology. Even in
think-
the chimpanzees, the female chimpanzees don't want the single guy, the chimp. We want the chimp that's got all the girls. It's something true. It's real.
I think if we look at humans, if we look at psychology, behavioral psychology, we look at anthropology, women are driven by self-preservation. That's their key part. Everything they do, they go for self-preservation because they want to increase their security or their security percentage, and that makes, if their percentage is high, they have an opportunity to actually survive. It increases their survivability, and so, yep.
I was going to say, but men see this now that a woman puts all her pursuit into a career and no longer into the man for being sustained.
Well, I think this is, and I'm going to go on my limb here. My theory here is that because we've seen so many men lost their lives during the First and Second World War, there was such a shortage of men, and women were starting to get into the job market, and rightfully the secularists wanted to achieve that. We saw that diminishment in the 90s, 60s, and 70s with regards to women actually wanting to be part of marriages. But we see that that once again, it's women believing that they don't have the trust in men to actually increase their security or their survivability. And so what they're doing is they're trying to do it themselves. Now, some women are actually very good at it and some won't. The question you want to ask is, are they happier because of it? And the data overwhelmingly points that they're not. And this is the key. The individual woman may find happiness in, but the question they struggle with when they reach the age of 50, and it starts when they reach the age of 30, but when they reach 50, they realize, but I'm going to be all alone. I'm not going to have children. I'm not going to have a husband to pursue this time where I feel that I know that who I am as a woman, I did not reach my fullest potential.
Yeah. And they're trying to deny the fact that they don't, that they do need a man. A lot of, they're being fed by the media. You don't need no man, But Sana was telling me the other day, she's like, she has this just desire, God-given desire to know that she's helping me, that I'm pleased with her, that she's helping me advance my mission. And I'm like, I think that is a common thing for a woman, that she wants to be a helpmate, right? She wants to find a man that she can bring value to and help him conquer the world. Just like we want to be, I want to hear from God. I want him to, tell me, well done, my good and faithful servant, right? I want to know that he's pleased with me. So
what?
Yeah,
Robin, I want to segue right from what you just said in this, because I was speaking to Rujan and Jolene over the weekend about that exact aspect. The question was posed to me last week. What is love? What is love according to the Bible? And I was really thinking, I think it really comes down to which position you occupy. Are you in an authority position or are you in a subordinate position? If you're in a subordinate position, it's absolute submission to your authority. If you're in a leadership position, authority position, it's about being responsible, absolute responsibility. And so when we see women that are very subordinate to their husbands, you will probably most often see that those men, especially Bible believers, they'll be also absolute subordinate to in their relationship with our Heavenly Father. They would understand it principle because they actually observed their wives in this, and they learned from their wives to actually be in better subordination, to be better at being subordinate to our Heavenly Father. So there is that actual change. Woman would see this is an example of a good godly man, and that would be because he's listening to our Heavenly Father, so he's a good example, is leading me. But the way she actually responds to him is the only example that he may ever have in seeing how he should be following our Heavenly Father.
So you're saying that he's actually, trying to lord over God. He's trying to call the shots with God because the woman's doing it to him.
Well, what I'm saying here is that sometimes we as rancorous humans, we go about and we want to tell God what to do. We want to tell Yeshua Messiah, or Jesus Christ, we want to tell him what we need to do or what he expects from us. Maybe we're saying, you know what, God, you gave me that, but I'm not happy with this. I would rather us go the other way. I want to see how that's going to happen. That's not subordinate. That's insubordination.
Because you would think that alpha, and I use that term again, just as a placeholder, but you would think to your, you know, just like what would be common sense, but it doesn't sound like it's true at all. It's like the alpha would be the one that was trying to tell God, you know, this is how it's going to be, and he would be the one, but it's actually not, because the alpha will be the one that's more in submission to God, and the beta actually flips, and he's the one that is, like you said, insubordinate, right?
Well, yes. So you and I have spoken about the whole alpha, beta, gamma, and all of that kappa men. I'm not hashing that, but what I want to say is that what you'll have is a lot of men that were extremely alpha throughout history, were very much, a lot of them had a high sense of belief in a higher power. I'm going to use example. For instance, Gaius Julius Caesar, for instance, had believed that he was fulfilling his destiny, that Jupiter actually bestowed upon him, and he was going to do that irrespective. So he knew, being in submission to this false god, he still was motivated to act within his sphere as an alpha within history. We see this with Napoleon Bonaparte, very much similar situation, had a religious conviction that he had to make a difference on this planet. And to some extent, Adolf Hitler, you see as well in his history. He had such a sense of grandeur, because every time that everybody shot at him or tried to kill him, it never succeeded. And so that fermented that idea of, I am untouchable. And so you will find that a lot of these alpha men, I'm not talking about the moral aspects of their behavior. I'm just talking about their sense of how they go about life, that they are all believe that they're subject to destiny.
So we have a couple minutes left here in the show. Any parting thoughts from any of us?
I would love to throw out one quick question and just say, okay, this is a pretty depressing episode. What do you guys think the fix is? How do we
exactly?
I think I have an idea, but
like more specifically, like what hope is there for, you know, a single mother, 30 to 35, or even just a single woman, or a college educated woman at age 40? You know, what kind of hope is out there for them? At, you know, when the calculator's ringing them 3.8% chances here.
One of the things that I believe is that, and as a coach, life coach, I believe that men should continue to improve themselves. I think the prospects of getting married really is something that triggers a man to continue to improve himself, even in plural marriage sense. If he knows he has to improve, or he's going to get once again step into a new covenant, he's forcing himself to improve, because who's a slob sitting on the couch stuffing his face with chicken wings and chips, or candy? At the end of the day, we have also that a lot of women have lost complete complete faith in society, where they have to think about, how do I improve myself? Learn to be feminine, not feministic. Be feminine. Work on that, what is you as a woman, the soft, gentle, colorful part, because that's definitely going to draw a man's attention. Learn to speak gentle. When a man raises his voice, speak softer, because what you're going to force is that you're going to force that man to actually listen to you as you speak softer. But don't patronize. Don't try to fight a man fire with fire, because that's just you going to increase the odds of putting yourself in a dangerous position. What I want to say is, plural marriage is definitely, Dr. Matt Larson really made reference to this. Plural marriage is a life raft. It is not a saving. It cannot save marriages in the West. It's a life raft, because and the trajectory we're following today, there is no saving the West's marriages in the state of affairs we have.
Gentlemen, it's been a great show. We're at the end of our show now. We intend to be putting these out every week, same time slot, until we tell you differently. I will be covering a topic here in the future on whether marriage is still relevant and what is its purpose. And we're going to have a lot of great topics. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today. And we're going to be reading your comments.
Thank you.
Until next time.